Ratios. There's different ways to write ratios. And what a ratio is it it uses division to compare two numbers. And there's three different ways to write a ratio of two numbers. And for example, what a ratio, let's say we're looking at baseball. We have baseball here. And we can have a ratio between the wins and the losses. So let's look at the San Diego Padres for this example. We have spring training and they have 16 wins and 11 losses. So if I wanted to write a ratio for the San Diego Padres between their wins and losses, I can write it as 16 to 11. That'd be 16 wins to 11 losses. Or I could write it as a fraction. I could write it as 16 to 11. So the ratio of 16 to 11. Or the third way is I could write 16 to 11. And you read all three of these ways the same. You would read this as A to B, the ratio of A to B. So if A to B. So you would read this as the ratio of 16 to 11. And you read all three of these the same. So the ratio of 16 to 11, the ratio of 16 to 11, or the ratio of 16 to 11. It doesn't matter which way you write them. You can write them all three the same. Now, the only thing that you need to watch out for is the second number B. The second number B cannot be 0. It can't be 0. Has to be a non-zero number. And that's because it's a division problem. You have wins to losses. So and that's for use in algebra. It can't be 0 as far as algebra. Now in real life with baseball teams, you could have a team that has 0 losses, and you would write the ratio. Let's say it's 34 wins and 0 losses. So you have wins and losses. Now you could write 34 wins to 0 losses, and that's okay. But when we're talking about algebra, the B, or the second number, cannot be 0. It has to be a non-zero. Okay, so if we wanted to write San Diego Padres wins to losses, it would be 16 to 11. If we wanted to write, let's say we want to find out what are the Chicago Cubs wins to games played. So the Chicago Cubs wins to games played. Well, they won 17 times. 17 times. So their wins to games played. Games played. So they won 17 times. And the total number of games played, well, you have to add the wins and the losses to get the total. So you do 17 plus 14, which is 31. So it'd be 17 wins to 31 games played. So that'd be games. Okay, so you could write it as 17 to 31. You could write it as 17 to 31. Or you could also write it as 17 to 31 that way. And then let's say we want to write a ratio in simplest form. If we want to write a ratio in simplest form, so sometimes you'll need to simplify a ratio. Let's say that you go to an amusement park. and you wait in line. There's all these people in line. Let's say a bunch of people in line. And you're waiting in line to ride a roller coaster. Here's the roller coaster. Okay, let's say you wait in line for 1 hour. Let's say 1.5 hours. So 1 hour and 1/2 hour. So 1.5 hours. And the ride lasts 2 minutes. Okay, so you wait in line for 1.5 hours, and you get on the ride. It only lasts 2 minutes. And I want to know what's the ratio. What is the ratio of time spent in line to time spent on the ride? Well, now here we have to look. We can't just write 1.5 to 2 because they're different measurements. You have hours, 1.5 hours in line, and you have minutes on the ride. So you have to do one of two things. You can either change minutes to hours or hours to minutes, and then write a ratio that way. And it's in this situation, it's going to be easier to change your hours to minutes. So 1.5 hours, well, 1 hour is 60 minutes. 60 minutes. And then a half hour is another 30 minutes. So you have 90 minutes total. 60 plus 30 is 90. So you wait in line for 90 minutes and you're on the ride for 2 minutes. So your ratio of time spent in line to time spent on the ride would be 90 to 2. Now we could leave it like that, except we can simplify it, because we can divide the top and the bottom by 2 and get 45 over 1. And that would be in simplest form. Now what these two fractions are, would be called equivalent ratios. Equivalent ratios. So those are equivalent ratios. That means that they're the same.